to Justin, let the competition cold. Like Phoenix from the ashes, we rise higher and higher to the flames of friendly fire. We'll become inspired, no matter the challenge or the war that we face. We'll emerge victorious, undefeated in the sacred military race.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Friendly Fire, brought to you by Arrival. My name is Justin Stevens. I am your host today, and we do have another special and awesome guest for us tonight for you guys. I'm sure I'm already kind of dropping the hints here. Back behind me, you can see the Colorado Rockies logo there. We're going to be talking some Rockies baseball with my man Patrick Lyons. So Patrick is a guy that I was able to connect with a few weeks ago, actually a little bit more than that recently, just talking baseball and that sort of stuff on Twitter. You guys are going to be very pleased with what you have from him, because I've been able to check out his work over the last month or so, and absolutely knows the sport, absolutely knows the team, and we'll maybe pick his brain and see if he knows some rival bingo later on as well. But for now, like I said, talking Rockies baseball, talking MLB. We have some early news. We also have some kind of old news that I kind of want to get his up-to-date insight on. But before we do all that, obviously, we got to pay the bills around here. For those that aren't already aware, Rival Fantasy is the newest evolution in fantasy sports. Rival's all-in-one fantasy platform has changed the fantasy sports landscape. From fantasy bingo, where you mark off boxes of achievements that your players accomplish on the field, to season-long and best ball leagues, to mock drafts and challenges, and more. They have the perfect user-friendly website and app for you. So send a challenge to your friend or send a challenge to your rival and tell them to put their money where their mouth is. But your first deposit of up to $200 will be matched, plus an additional $25 just for using that link, joinrival.com/titletribe. That's joinrival.com/titletribe. All right, and we got Patrick with us. Patrick, I tried to get Ryan Reynolds to do that commercial for me, but still waiting on it to come back. I don't know if he's gotten my emails yet. He's been avoiding me for a little while now, but after about 10 or 12 years of pestering him, eventually he'll respond. But how's it going, Patrick?
Doing well, Justin. Glad to be on, and hopefully Ryan does get back to you. I think it's all the challenges you're sending him over there on Rival Fantasy, and you just keep whooping his butt. So I think he's probably taking it a little bit personal there.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think that my little $1 to $5 bets would probably hit his pocket too tough. But that's what I love about Rival. You can bet on multiple different levels, but we're not going to talk about that just yet, man. I'm excited to have you. It's not very often we get the color purple as a background for the show, and I look really good in purple. Like, it really does. It brings out my features. So I'm super stoked to be able to be talking Colorado Rockies baseball. But before we do that, why don't you tell the people where they can find your work and what it is that you do in terms of Colorado baseball?
Yeah, I've been a beat reporter for the Rockies for 6-7 years now. 2018 is when I got started. Writer for the Baseball Writers Association for America. I write at justbaseball.com, covering both the Rockies and the Dodgers a little bit too, staying in the NL West. Been very active on X. I started a TikTok account. I'm having a lot of fun just doing random baseball activities and participating in MLB pickle and trivia and different things like that. So, but justbaseball.com is where you can get all of my written stuff, at Patrick D. Lyons over on X, for plenty of discourse about baseball, specifically about the Colorado Rockies.
And just so you know, it is down there at the bottom. It's the words "just baseball." I didn't want the people to think you were just saying it's just baseball.com. All right. So yeah, there's the info for Patrick down there at the bottom. So I've got a Rockies hat around here somewhere. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. I know I've got one though, because like I said, I like the color purple. So Vikings and yeah, that's pretty much it. So, all right. So when it comes to Colorado Rockies baseball, we're gonna hop right into it here. I guess before we get to the Rockies, I always like to cover all of the main basic up-to-date news. And I've already told you, and the people that are watching already know that I don't know baseball super well. That's why I have you smart guys on. But Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher for the Dodgers, you said you used to cover the Dodgers a little bit as well, and he's in your division. I'm sure you've heard a lot about this guy. Obviously fired his interpreter. We all know that over the gambling issues. I heard that there were some other lingering issues that could, like some other ramifications he could be facing. But then I noticed on your Twitter account, it looked to me like maybe he hit a home run recently that broke a kind of a schneid that he was on. So, like, what kind of trouble is he really in? I've been hearing that it could even be up to a lifetime ban, or is that all old news and I need to just move on?
No, no, no. This story is going to continue to change and change over time. And yeah, I'd be remiss if I also didn't plug Who's Better Baseball podcast. We've got our own channel on YouTube, and so we're a podcast. And just getting the X account going on that. That's where you would have seen the clip of Ohtani finally hitting his first home run, as you said, getting off the schneid just a little bit. Hasn't been getting on base and hitting for power quite as much as teammate batting in front of him, Mookie Betts, who's been an MVP caliber player so far, especially playing shortstop. But as far as things are concerned with Shohei Ohtani, I think there's a lot of misconception and rumors out there. If Shohei Ohtani were gambling on baseball, we will find out about that, and he will get a lifetime ban. That being said, I don't really think that's what is at hand right now. Obviously, his interpreter and what he called his business partner has been involved in some illegal gambling in California. It's not legalized in California, and he was going through a bookmaker, and that person, their files and everything got sieged by the government, and so this is a federal investigation right now. It's one of the reasons why I think Ohtani and his team really wanted to get in front of this, rather than out of the blue. Ohtani is somehow attached. There's payments being made directly to this illegal bookmaker in California. Well, what if it sounds like this, or what if it really is this? That's one of the reasons why they kind of wanted to get in front of it. As it turns out, or at least as part of Shohei's story, is that his interpreter was doing certain business on the side that he was not aware of. Obviously, that's very problematic. I think one of the differences in this instance versus others is this isn't any kind of speculation as to, hey, here's maybe what happened. Ohtani himself, with the Dodgers' new interpreter, point blank said, this man stole money from me. So now that's a serious accusation. That's not just trying to dance between the raindrops. There's a big difference in that. So whether or not that's true or not is separate. But the fact that, his representation, his lawyers would say, go out and make a black and white accusation like that, I think speaks a little more credence to the fact that, maybe it really was his interpreter, his business partner somehow got a hold of, some of his money and was making these transactions.
Sounds like it's very possible. Like it seems like it could be a legitimate argument on Ohtani's part. So, wow. Yeah, that's an insane story. It'll be interesting to see how all that plays out.
I did have my doubts at first. I did once the story first broke, reading between the lines, remembering that he said, quote unquote, my business partner, it did make me think, hold on, there's a couple things going on. It makes me think of that. It makes me think of this. And then immediately the next day, the statements that he made, which again, might not necessarily be the truth,
right.
But you're not making those statements unless you can back it up with some evidence. So we are going to find out about this. This is not the same thing as the Astros sign stealing scandal, where that was something that MLB completely was able to handle and keep under wraps despite the widespread cheating that was going on throughout nearly every team. They were able to go ahead, suspend some people, make them the face of this scandal, and then bring them back immediately. AJ Hinch immediately turned around and became the manager of the Tigers. Alex Cora was welcomed back in Boston. So this is now out from underneath MLB's building. This is out from underneath their roof, their jurisdiction. So we will get answers on Ohtani's involvement in this illegal gambling.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. At the beginning, I really thought that Otani was just throwing his homie under the bus. Like, I legit thought that he was just trying to find a scapegoat. But also, I mean, you make all that kind of money, you don't really need to risk it on gambling at this point. So, but we've seen it happen. We have seen players do it. But all right, after week 1 of the Major League Baseball season, most of the fans are kind of settling in with their team already, and they kind of get a somewhat of an idea of what they're looking at for the season coming up. So across the league, before we get into the Rockies, like league wide, are there any particular players or any particular teams that either surprise you in a good way or a bad way that maybe you kind of want to look at under a second scope moving forward for the rest of the season? Like maybe we need to look at these guys a little bit differently because of how week 1 has kind of fallen before us.
Yeah, I think the bad performances to me stand out more than the good ones because, good performance, if you start off, 5-1 like the Pittsburgh Pirates going into Thursday's game, you can say, all right, well, that's just a good 6-game run. And maybe they've got the pieces there. And I do like what they did during the offseason. There's some believability there, but it's a 6-game stretch. If you start off 0-7 like the Marlins, now you've got a big hole that you need to dig out of. If you are 0-6, 0-5, 0-6 like the New York Mets, and there's nobody in your building, and you've already made certain promises to improve the roster, and you're in a major market like New York, Mets fans, they're going to be really upset being winless through the first week of the season. So I think those bad starts are the ones that really jump out. Juan Soto, on the positive side, has been absolutely fantastic for the Yankees. He's fit in there really well. Looks like a natural Yankee in that road uniform, and the pinstripes look great on him as well. Mookie Betts, as I mentioned earlier, he was my pick to be MVP in the National League. You can count on him each and every year for 30-plus home runs. But the fact that he's hitting in front of Otani, the fact that he's playing now a premium position at shortstop when he's a multi-time Gold Glove Award-winning right fielder, that's value right there. And that's what that award is. It's not just who's the best player, it's most valuable player. And so Mookie Betts has jumped out there to a really good start. And for the Colorado Rockies, Charlie Blackmon at 37 years old, soon to be 38, he's hitting fairly well, batting around 400, and in 25 plate appearances this year, tied with Adley Rutschman, he's yet to strike out. So, it does go to show you that some of the older guys still are capable of top performances as well.
Well, I tell you what, this wasn't on the show notes, so I'm kind of playing this one by ear, but a little improv, if you will. We already know that I look good in purple. So if I were to buy a jersey for the Rockies, is it one of these older guys?
Maybe. So Blackmon has a 1-year deal right now, and he is not committed to this idea that he is going away anytime soon. He takes great care of his body. It is his tool. So, after games, if he has a big game, it's gotten better. But there was a time in which if Charlie had a big game circa 2017, 2018, you might wait 45 minutes to an hour after you get into the clubhouse because he's doing his post-game routine. Now he's got it down. He's refined it a little bit more, but he's still in great shape, still has a lot to offer from the leadership front, more DH than a right fielder. So that's a jersey that's going to age well with time because he is, an all-time Rockies legend. And so many of the counting stats, he's behind, Todd Helton, Mr. Rocky himself. So a number 19 jersey is really nice. If you want a more current guy, a younger guy, he's off to a really rough start. In fact, made 2 errors on one play. He's got 4 errors so far this season after only making 2 last year and being somewhat of a candidate for a Gold Glove Award. That's number 22, Nolan Jones. So Jones looks good on the back of a jersey with the double 2s. And again, you want to get a purple one. You can get the white with the pinstripes on it, the home version, but the alternate purple one does look really sharp. I think Jones is going to figure some things out here and get back to the player that went 2020 as a rookie last season, one of only 16 players in the history of baseball to 20 homers and steal 20 bases in a single year. And he did it all in just about 4 months.
Yeah, I think I saw something that showed a new alternate uniform coming out soon, or maybe a new alternate logo or something. It was on Twitter, so it may not have even been real. But I was going to tag you in it. I don't remember if I did or not. But if I didn't, it's because in the back of my mind I was thinking I don't want this guy to think I'm stalking him this early. So, let's see. Um, Let's see. Oh, the next up was the Major League Baseball rule changes. So some of them were kind of highlighted during spring training, and now that we're a week into the actual season, I want to know if this is something that seems like these rule changes overall were just kind of a little bit of a hubbub that we don't even really need to worry about, or are these something that we're gonna see kind of changes throughout the course of the game that could potentially change the game moving forward? Have they been an issue so far after week one?
Well, last year was when the big rule changes came that really kind of shifted how the game looks. And it looks only slightly different. In fact, I don't think you can even notice the differences. The pitch clock, obviously, being the biggest one. We all say it's the national pastime. It's how you pass time because you're not looking at a clock. You don't know how much time has gone by. But because of that, we're having at bats that last, a minute, 2 minutes long because the guy's stepping out, fixing the batting gloves, fixing his hair and helmet, all of those things. And baseball said, we don't need that. That's not an important part of the game. And ultimately what they did was they were able to shave close to about 30 minutes off the game time. So keeping the games under 3 hours. And really the only thing we lost were the deleted scenes. That's kind of how I compare the previous version of baseball to the one with a pitch clock. It's like you may have watched a director's version of a movie and you're going to see some things you didn't see the first couple times that you saw your favorite movie and say, oh, that was good. That was fine. But there's a reason why those deleted scenes were cut out. They didn't necessarily contribute very much. So speeding up the game, I think, was a huge part. Bases being bigger, again, you might not notice it very much. Similar to the netting that went up, that goes up all around, everywhere other than beyond the fence in the outfield. But that protective netting, people were very up in arms, complaining about how it was going to impact their views of the game, and you don't notice it. It's so thin. So most of the impact of the new rule changes last year really were minimal, and they ultimately just helped the speed and the pace of the game in a very positive way. It led to a lot more stolen bases, led to a lot more base hits as well, because teams weren't able to shift. They weren't able to have 3 infielders or sometimes 4 infielders because you brought an outfielder over. Instead of taking hits away, baseball tried to change some of the rules in order to allow for more offense, for more runs to be scored. And I think ultimately that's positive. As far as the new rules this year, they just tightened up the pitch clock a little bit more. So again, a couple more seconds that are going to come off of each inning when there's runners on base. So maybe another minute or two that's going to get shaved off from the overall time of game. They made a tweak to the running lane rule. So the changes this year were kind of, very moderate and even less noticeable than the ones last year. But I think baseball probably was a little bit long overdue because we know all the other sports are very much fine to change some of the rules. It still looks like the same thing, but baseball, it's an old time game in that capacity. But and I consider myself an old time guy, so to speak. I'm a historian, and I love those older facets of the game. But you do need to evolve a little bit as a sport, and so those new rule changes have definitely been more positive than anything else.
Right on. And if you do want to check out those deleted scenes, you can always just go back on TikTok, watch the Savannah Bananas do their thing after you follow at Patrick D. Lyons MLB on TikTok. But always some deleted scenes out there. Go back and watch some old games if you want to see guys stand outside the box and do their nails and stuff. So we get. I mean, I appreciate the fact they sped the game up a little bit. It does make the game a little bit more watchable. But that's also a guy that traditionally, like, I was big in baseball before. It got to the point where I didn't have time for 2 sports. Now I'm starting to kind of like it again. So maybe the rule changes are for me, all right, on to the Rockies. This is what a lot of the people are tuning in for, because when I share this, I'm going to share it all over as many Rocky social medias as I possibly can. And so, Patrick, I see obviously you're a Rockies guy by trade, but are they also kind of your team? Like, growing up, who was your team growing up? And if it was the Rockies or whoever it was, kind of how did that start?
Yeah, well, I'm originally from New Jersey, and from an area of New Jersey, the Jersey Shore. In fact, I literally worked on the Jersey Shore before that show grew in popularity. But I kind of was in this triangulated area, so to speak, where Philadelphia was an hour away. Both New York teams were a little more than an hour away. You even had 3 hours away, Baltimore, and then Washington D.C. A little bit further than that. Boston's 5 hours. Pittsburgh's about 6. So it was definitely this mecca of baseball. Went to Cooperstown just about every summer. So
Nice.
growing up, I had a little bit of everything. Was never really a Mets fan. Yankees were kind of the team that was passed down to me. But I had family in Colorado Springs, in Colorado. So as soon as the Rockies came about, I immediately was very much aware of them. Even had some of their original gear that had a slightly different logo. The one that's behind you now, where the arch is purple, it was originally gray. And so I had some of that gear. And so the Rockies had always been somewhat of like a second team, someone whose history I was well versed in and whatnot. So when I moved out to Colorado and got back into the sports media industry, it was a pretty natural transition for me to kind of get caught back up with 20 or so years of history versus, if I had to do that the other way around, learning 100 years of Yankees history would have been a lot harder.
So no Yankees tattoos or anything.
No tattoos whatsoever. I'm a baseball fan, to be honest. Like, if I had to be arrested for wearing like any team's gear, that would be a non-issue for me. I wouldn't try to sneak around, wearing Baltimore Orioles socks or something like that. Like,
Right.
I'm just a baseball guy. I just love the sport.
Right on. I love it. Love to hear it. And that also means you're going to get good, honest feedback as a Rockies fan when you're reading your work, because you're going to give them on. You don't have that nostalgia of them being your team, and it's going to pull the wool over your eyes when you're doing your work on the team. You're going to call it as you see it, which is very clear by your Twitter messages. Is you don't hold back if you see something bad. So that's why you're a good follow. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, there are some people that if you are originally from Colorado and this was your childhood team, you can have that kind of bias, and it does bleed out there, and people do notice that you're maybe not being as honest as you should be. So do I want the Rockies to do well? Yeah, absolutely. It would be great to wake up in my own bed and know that I got a short drive to get to Coors Field to cover a World Series game. That would be awesome. But that, the decisions that are made that lead to something like that happening are completely out of my hands. And so all I can do is really just be this conduit between what's actually happening in the clubhouse with the organization, with other organizations in and around baseball, and being that conduit for fans that maybe aren't aware of what's going on.
Yep. Fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, guys, don't forget to check us out on our Gilded chat. Gilded. If you have the Gilded app on your phone, all you got to do is reach out to me at JustinFF_ or our email, toiletstitles@gmail.com. Let us know that you want in on the free Gilded chat. As you can see, it's not just football anymore. We've opened up a new channel where we talk baseball. It's free to you, and we have over 200 people in there. So reach out to me if you want in on that Gilded chat. You just have to make sure you download the app first. Gilded is kind of like Discord, only a little bit cooler in our opinion, because it also ties into a lot of the gaming stuff that a lot of people like to do. So, but anyway, I digress. I wanted to get that out there before I forgot. Now, Patrick, your Rockies are currently 1-6. You just said we love to see them do well. Of course we would. Unfortunately, right now they're not. They're in last place in the NL West. They went 1-3 in the series against the Diamondbacks, and then again on the road against the Cubs. They went 0-3, so they're 1-6 right now. But they get to come home for the first time tomorrow, which will be yesterday as you're watching this on Saturday morning. But they're going to be home all week with a nice little stretch with a couple series at home here. So is there something they can do to turn this team around, or was it just kind of rust at the beginning of the season, or is this a rebuild season? Again, I don't follow the Rockies well enough to know. Should we expect them to start bouncing back, or do we even really expect them to? Like, is it just a rebuild thing where we're just appreciative of any win that we can get?
It's very much a rebuild, despite the fact that the Rockies, the front office, and their owner do not like that word to rebuild, because when you're doing that, you are actively tearing down something, which it means admitting defeat of some sort. And I think there's a place for that, honestly, in sports to have that kind of honesty. But they do not necessarily want to do that because of the message it would send to fans. I think it would discourage a lot of people. So despite the fact that they lost 103 games last year, the idea is, well, you know what? We got some young guys that we can kind of count on, that we can build around. We've got even more young guys coming. So I think we're kind of on this upward trajectory. And the first week of the season showed, that's not necessarily the case. I did predict going into the season that they would have an identical 59-103 record as to last year, which was only their first time ever losing 100 games. Now, right now, at 1-6, that winning percentage means they would win 23 games over the course of the season. So are they better than they've played? 100%. They are not the Cleveland Spiders. Like it's not going to be that bad. I would actually be quite surprised if they were to lose like 110 games. But this is a team that it's going to be, battling to avoid 100 losses again, mostly because of their pitching, right? Starting pitching, they've got some, good arms there. They've got some depth, but not enough. And that was a big thing that plagued them last year when they had two of their big workhorses go down with Tommy John surgery. And they're only going to get one of them back. But even still, it'll be a slightly rehabbed Herman Marquez versus a fully formed, fully healthy, best of the best Herman Marquez. You also have a very young bullpen. They've got a great defense, but that defense has really struggled mightily. And the bats are there. They're going to eventually be able to hit. But we haven't seen that just yet. So I think they're going to struggle. They are the fifth best team in the National League West. I think they are probably the worst team in the National League. And yeah, they should be getting better with a lot of the young guys. There should be some hope that's there. There's some room for payroll flexibility going forward. But again, that's going forward. That's the future. As far as the 2024 season, I think it could continue to be, fairly bleak, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely agree with you that if they say the words rebuild, that does put a lot of fans into panic mode. I feel like we are slowly getting to that point, though, where there are more and more people that will hear that word and maybe even get a little excited because there's a brighter future in the horizon. They're at least planning for a brighter future instead of necessarily feeling like they're stuck in the past. And I'm sure some of the more realistic fans might feel that way. But, as a fan, sometimes it's tough to think, what, I have to root for this team all year long, knowing that they're planning on losing. So it definitely can be a frustration point for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think the owner, Dick Monfort, who, despite maybe just being the owner, which we know if you're the owner, you're not just the owner. That's a big deal. But, he gets his hands in on things. And I think, as a guy who's much more of a businessman than a baseball man, he recognizes that aspect of not completely giving up hope. It's kind of funny, between 2012 and 2015, the Rockies lost 377 games. While at the same time, from 2011 to 2014, the Cubs were intentionally losing, and they lost only one more game. They lost 378 games. So it goes to shows you where that mindset
Right.
can take you, where the Cubs had a much longer window of opportunity. They were able to win a World Series also from 2011 to 2014. The Astros were actively tanking, and they ended up, winning 2 World Series, and their window is still open because of that. So, the highs can be really high, but to your point, when you are kind of giving up hope, waving the white flag, saying, hey, be patient, maybe in a few more years, there's a goal by intentionally losing like this and intentionally putting out a bad product, you're going to lose some people. And some of them won't be coming back. And that can have a real black mark, I think, on an organization. And that's ultimately the choice of Dick Monfort, I think, is to try to avoid controversy, avoid black marks. And if that maybe means losing, more games in the future versus winning, he's okay riding that center line.
Yeah, Very good. Right on. I appreciate the insight. You did tell me earlier in the week that you don't really play fantasy baseball anymore. That was kind of a touchy point at one point in your life, but you've moved on, and bravo to you. I wish it's a habit I wish I could kick sometimes, but
It's fun. It is fun. I'll say that much.
luckily for us, I do play a lot of fantasy sports still, and we've got to talk about Rival a little bit here. And I do want to remind everybody before we get into Rival bingo cards, I want to just try to be transparent with everybody. We had Justin on last week, Justin Gonzalez, the big Red Sox fan, and we did play some cards that we lost, some MLB cards that we lost, and I believe it was 175 was one that I was close on. Yeah, so I thought that I had won when I initially looked at this this bingo board, because I know that there's a 4 corners option, but it's 4 in one corner and not all 4 corners. So I got excited for no reason. But we did have he chose he chose my whole lineup for me. He had a starting pitcher that had 1 hit by pitch. He had a center fielder with 0 ground into double plays. So again, these are just the achievements. As you hit the achievements, it fills in. If you hit 5 in a row or all 4 in one corner, as I found out, then you win the fantasy bingo. So I do want to show everybody on the NBA one here that I won last week. It is possible to win. I won in week 2 of the NFL. That one was a really big payout, a nice big payout. And this NBA one wasn't as big because not as many people play, but also you hit on a lot more achievements with the NBA one. So that means payouts are a little bit less, but you are more likely to win. So it's kind of like when you buy a scratch-off ticket. The NBA ones are the ones with the better odds, but the big dollar ones are the NFL ones that have the bigger payouts, even though you're less likely to win. Just kind of how it works. I'm still kind of fielding out what it is to win, or what it takes to win in Major League Baseball. So last week we played those 5 cards. We're going to play 5 more cards with my man Patrick here. And the way this works, Patrick, you see all these lineup spots, we got to put bodies in them. Okay. So we're going to throw in 3 starting pitchers, 2 infielders, 2 outfielders, and 2 utility guys. This is probably going to happen for the players that haven't played yet today. So there's probably only a couple of games left, because if I remember right, Thursdays are usually a travel or light day. But so here are our options. As a matter of fact, we only have 2 options for pitchers, because once you hit Lance Lynn here, it goes to the X there to tell us that we can't choose them. So actually, this is going to be a really bad idea to play a bingo card, because you're supposed to start 3. But what the hell, we're doing it for the people. So
Hey, Justin, it sounds to me like the early bird gets the worm, and we're late in the day here recording this, and it's a getaway day, and for some teams it's don't even play day.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And this is why I usually do the show on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m., which reminds me, I do want to show everybody too, if you hit on the Bestball tab at the top, or if you're on the main screen and you hit Bestball, they do have weekly Bestball as well. So you can hit the Major League Baseball button here, and you can scroll through and do $3 week 2. There's 6 teams. There's 3 in already. They're waiting on 3 more to join so that they can start their draft for the week 2 best ball week. So you don't do great in week 1. Oh, well, let's do another one in week 2. So that is also an option. But we're still going to play these bingo cards. So I don't really care. It's for the people. So, oh wait, that's NBA. All right, here we go. So our starting pitchers are going to be Seth. Is that Lugo? Seth Lugo and Michael Soroka. All right. And we don't get another one, so I don't know if it's even going to let me submit the card. We'll find out. Infielder.
Seth Lugo had a really good first start, and is a guy that's bet on himself to be a starting pitcher. He came up more as a relief pitcher with the Mets, so he's been really solid so far. So if we're talking about face-offs between Soroka and Lugo, I like Lugo to perform better for the Royals here tonight.
Excellent. And for what it's worth, like I think I mentioned this to you before we hit record. Sometimes it can even be a bad thing. So like maybe they give up 3 home runs. That could actually be an achievement on a bingo card. So that's kind of cool too. But I don't think it's going to let us submit this roster, to be honest with you, because I think it has to be filled, and I can't put a third pitcher in there. So we're too late to the game. No big deal. I'm going to pivot here. I'm going to play a challenge instead. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to skip through and find somebody that has already placed a bet for tonight's games, if there is one. So the Yankees are playing tonight as well, or is that for tomorrow?
Yeah, no, there's only about 4 teams, or rather 4 series of games going on. The Mets had a doubleheader against the Tigers and blew a big lead, and they were able to finally win their first game here on Thursday against the Tigers in walk-off fashion. So good for them. But yeah, if you're just looking at games for Thursday night, it would just be the Royals and White Sox. But everyone's back in action on Friday. There's plenty of home openers. Rockies have their home opener, and that's always a kind of a holiday kind of experience there for teams. It's only 15 can have opening day, but then the rest of the teams get the home opener, right? The first home game there. So in many ways, it's opening day 2.0.
Yeah, right on. I like that. All right, so you already talked a little bit highly of Michael's Soroka. Oh no, wait, you said it would be Lugo, right?
Yeah, Lugo's he's a guy that's worth buying stock. And if you're playing, regular fantasy sports, and he's a guy that probably would have gotten drafted late in a lot of MLB leagues. In the AL leagues, he definitely would have been drafted. But if he's still dangling around as a free agent in your MLB fantasy league, he might be worth a pickup.
Right on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a challenge. Since I can't do the bingo card, I'm going to create a challenge. We're going to just kind of pivot here, and I'm going to go with Tarek. Is that Skubal?
Correct. Yes.
Over Michael Soroka. Now this is the Skubal for tomorrow night, going against the Athletics, or Soroka tonight going against the Royals. And what I'm going to do after I choose my player and I place my bet, it's going to give me the option. Oh, nope, it's not. I have to do it this way. I have to create. Let me do that again. So I can create one and I can click on them. And who was the other guy? Oh, Soroka, Michael Soroka. All right. And after I create them, there's a reason I'm showing you guys this real quick. So I just created another one. So if somebody else accepts that other one, I'll have a $10 bet out there. But I can just type in a guy's name, and I know my guy Clock Dodgers. He is a representative for Rival. He accepts just about every bet that I send him. So I can send him that bet. He'll get a notification, and he'll be able to play that bet if he wants. And then he'll get to see how Soroka does tonight. And then I'll be rooting for Skubal tomorrow to outscore whatever Soroka does tonight. Now, if for whatever reason Skubal doesn't get the start, maybe they change the lineup at the last second, he's a scratch, or he tweaks his hamstring getting out of the shower, who knows what. If he's not able to play for whatever reason, it voids the bet. Nobody loses money. We just move on. So that's kind of what happened to me a few days ago when I placed this bet right here. Except I think it was kind of the opposite. I don't think that it was because Garcia didn't play. I think nobody accepted the bet is what happened there. So that also got voided, and I just got my $5 back. So there's the challenges. I wish I could have really shown you the full details of the bingo, though, Patrick, because I know that's usually what the guests tend to like the most. It's kind of fun. It's only $1 a piece, and you can play in Colorado. So for those of you that live in Colorado that are watching this Saturday morning, if you want to sign up for Rival, again, it's right here underneath my chin, joinrival.com/title tribe. I always put the link in the comments below as well, in the description, I should say. So if you go to that link and you sign up, then your first deposit of up to $200 is matched. Plus, you get that free additional $25 just for using that link. So if you deposit $200, you're going to walk away with $425 to bet with. So you deposit $25, you'll be walking away with $75 to bet with. So just like we like to say here at Toilets to Titles, that's playing with house money, which is also the name of one of our shows on Thursdays. So make sure you check out my man Iceman and DJ Prue on Thursdays, playing with house money for others general sports bets. But Patrick, man, I appreciate you coming on. I do want to flash up here real quick your credentials again, just so that the people can see one last time. But man, I appreciate you. I look forward to continuing to follow you on TikTok and Twitter and checking out your work. And the Rockies are lucky to have you as a writer for their team for sure.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate it. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. And look, for anyone that isn't a baseball fan, fair warning. Hey, basketball season's not going to be around for much longer. Football's already over. All right, you got the draft, or you're looking at that. That's fine. Same thing with hockey. Stanley Cup will be over here before you know it in about 2 months. Then you'll be forced to do baseball. And so instead of doing it, choose to do it now. Get ahead of it. Learn a little bit more about the sport, whether you're following the Rockies or whatever else is your team, depending on where you're located. There's probably a minor league town in your area. So there you go. Whatever big league club it is, get into that. Go support those minor league teams, even some of the independent teams as well. Go take in a game. It's still the national pastime. It's relaxing. It's fun. It's baseball.
I like that, man. That's great advice because, like, I live halfway between Indianapolis and Cincinnati. So the Indianapolis Indians are a lot cheaper than the Cincinnati Reds, and it's usually more of a family-friendly environment, which, I mean, the Reds, they know how to do it at Great American Ballpark. I don't know if it's still called that. I feel like maybe PNC got involved. No, okay. But yeah, so it's a great family-friendly environment as well. So I remember when the boys were a little younger, my kids, we would take them up there to see the fireworks and the show, and then there was also happened to be a baseball game, so it was really cool.
Yeah, no, they love welcoming families, all ages. It's fun. It's entertaining between innings. There's even more bells and whistles. They're giving away stuff all the time. So it's definitely a good way to spend your money. And that's a nice ballpark too there in Indianapolis. And they got a good team. Pirates have some really good prospects down there. So definitely should check it out.
Right on. Well, speaking of giving away stuff on the way out here, I got to remind everybody, if you're not a Patreon, it's patreon.com/Toilets to Titles. We just gave away an autographed Bijan Robinson jersey this past episode on Tuesday night. And the next big one that we're going to give away, I'm still not 100% sure if I'm even allowed to announce it yet. But like I said, it kind of rhymes with Dustin Smefferson. We might have one of those autographed jerseys coming up here pretty soon. If you're a Patreon member, you increase your odds of winning. If you're not, then you want to give those extra donations, $5 for one ticket, and then I forget the rest of them, but we'll go over that more in detail on the Tuesday night show whenever Wicked's going to be filling in for myself and Coach. But again, Patrick, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you coming on, and thank you to all the viewers out there. Make sure you contact us at Toilets to Titles or toiletstotitles@gmail.com.